Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch Harlan, and welcome to the Truth Talks podcast. Today, I'm joined by an amazing guest, but before I introduce them to you, I want to ask that you please like and subscribe below. That way, we can continue to bring you these incredible stories. And if you're already liked and subscribed to our channel, we thank you for all of your support. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch Harlan, and welcome to the Truth Talks podcast. Today's episode, I am here with Satori Mateu. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Great to be here.
Man, I tell you what, we got to do a pre-interview with you. It was one of the most powerful things I've done. I love it when two grown men can get all emotional talking about success and just different visions for what we want to do, what we want the world to see and hear, and you know, one of the niches that I've come into is I always find people like yourself, the people who are at the uber level of success, but then I get you to tell your own personal story. And sometimes that's uncomfortable for people, but man, I think we knocked it out of the park. Before we start, though, before we get into your story, let me tell people a little bit about you. For more than 2 decades, you specialized in the psychology of high performance, which is what makes pro athletes, experts, families, organizations of any size do what they do and perform their absolute best. You do a lot of you're one of the world's #1 elite performance mentors, creator of Wealth Accelerator Expert Performance Academy, 2-time best-selling author with a lady that we both know in common, The Unshakable Wealth and Superpower Secrets. Are you living in LA now? Okay, so that was then, now you're over there. Got it. We're going to talk about that. And then also the podcast Half-Assed a Badass, which I'm telling you, that has got to be the best name for a podcast. I'm going to tell producer Chad, I think we may have missed a boat, and we should have got that one, because that's one of my favorite podcast names for sure. I didn't know what it meant till I got to meet you personally. And now we're going to talk a little bit about why I bring people like you on this show. There is a misconception, I think, in when people see you now. They say, oh man, the road had to have been easy, had to have known some people, had to have been a little bit on the lucky side. That is not your story. I would like to introduce you. I'm going to be quiet and let you roll on your story, but I want to start, and you know exactly where I want to start. So Satori, take it away for us, buddy.
Thank you. So like we were talking about the other day, technically, I shouldn't be here. And people ask me, what do you mean? Like, I shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be here. Well, when my mom was 16 years old, she was on the abortion table. And my little Spanish grandma, very short, shorter than me, she walks into the abortion room and tells my mom, she says, honey, go home. You don't have to do this. And this was my dad's mom. And so at that time, my mom was 16, right? So she's 16, she's not married, and my dad was Spanish, and my grandpa, my mom's dad, was Italian Catholic. So that was like, in those days, Italian and Spanish people, they kind of like cats and dogs. So my dad used to hide under the bed, under my mom's bed, until my grandpa went to bed. And then he would go back under the bed until my grandpa went to work. And so that's the relationship. They didn't know anything. But I've seen pictures of when they got married. Now, I was in the belly. So finally he found out, and they had to get married. But as I grew up, she was very young, my mom. And so many times I heard her say that my life would have been so much better if I didn't have you. My life would have been easier. I would have made more money. And so I got to hear that a lot. And I didn't, as a 5-year-old, 3-year-old, 6-year-old, you don't really maybe grasp the connection of it. But somewhere I grew up thinking and feeling that I shouldn't be here. And it was a shaming experience, right? And guilt experience. So, which resulted in that I minimized myself, and I tippy-toed, and I did everything to make people happy, which I think it's something that, a lot of people probably can relate to, is that when we start minimizing or tippy-toeing or trying to please people all the time, we stop being ourselves. And so for me, I grew up playing in bands. I play guitar, and I also train martial arts. And it required a lot of focus, a lot of discipline. And when I was 19 years old, I read a book, and still to this day, I don't really remember the exact name of the book, but it was something to the degree of, The Way of the Samurai or something like that. And I've been trying to find the title. I still haven't found it. Uh, but it was about focus. And at that time, I was going to school. I was in music school, and I wanted to become a professional musician. And so at that time, I was really focusing. I started I was playing guitar as my main instrument, but I started playing drums. I started singing. I started to try out all kinds of things. And I started noticing that when I focused on the things that I learned in the book, I started to speed up my learning experience. I started learning faster. And I love that. But all of a sudden, I started to have other things. I started getting visions of what people were thinking. I was getting visions of what people were going to say. And I was seeing patterns. And one morning, I wake up in the morning. It's at that time I was living in Sweden, in Stockholm, and I remember getting up. It was still March, April. It was still kind of like a snow, but it was a sunny day. So I put on a pair of shorts, packed my guitar case, put it in the car, and I just went out driving. And for some reason, it felt like I was guided, and the car was just going different places. I was not trying to decide where I was going to go. I was supposed to go to school, but I just started driving, and I realized as I was driving throughout the day, I ended up in all the places that I had lived. And my grandma, my mom's mom, she was dead at the time. At the time, I mean, she was dead at that time. Like she came back, but so I felt like she was with me, and she was kind of telling me, she was guiding the conversation, guiding the whole thing. I remember driving out to a lake, and it was still ice on the lake. So I started driving out on the lake, and I was kind of scared. Like, what am I doing? Like, what if the car just goes straight down? And so I drove back, and I ended up on a cemetery. And at the cemetery, there was these. It was all dark at this time, and there was one little light at the church. And I walk up to the church. The car was boiling. I put some ice on the car, trying to cool it down. I go knock on the door, and nobody opens. And they probably were scared. I mean, who knocks at the door at night at the church? And so, but it was getting cold, so I started running. And I remember my friend was living maybe like 5 minutes away. So I was running to my friend's house, and I knock on his door, and he opens up, and he has like a little pre-party there, but he's like, "Where you been? Everybody's looking for you." And so he gives me his car keys, and he says, "Go home." And I get in the car, and I drive home, and I go into the shower, wash my feet. It was almost like my mission was complete, like I was done for the day. And I walk out, and my dad came to visit, and he's like, "What's going on? We worried about you, and how are you feeling?" And I'm like, "I'm great. I've never felt better in my whole life." And he's like, "Tell me more. What do you mean?" Well, I mean, I feel like I control my emotions. I feel like my vision is so clear. I never felt happier in my life. And he's like, "We're kind of worried about you. Something's not right." Because everybody kept saying, "You're acting different. You're not being yourself." And so he said, "Let's go to the hospital." I'm like, "I'm not going to the hospital. Why?" And I was kind of showing him, like, I can be like this, like excited, or I can just be calm. I can do anything you want, because I'm in total charge of my life and my emotions and my mental state. He's like, "Just come with me." And so I said, "Okay, I can do it for you." So I went to the hospital, and my stepmom was there, my then girlfriend was there, the doctor, my dad, and we started talking. And I had this vision, and all this whole thing was about that I feel like I could heal people. And at that time in Sweden, this is like 93, people, that was kind of like weird language. Like, what do you mean heal people? Like, that's strange. So we started talking, and I said, I feel great. I haven't been happy. The more I spoke, they were like, I think you need to stay here. I'm like, I'm not going to stay here. They're like, yeah, you need to stay here. Well, I'm not going to stay here. And they're like, well, you don't have a choice. And at that time, I started getting pissed. I stood up and I'm like, listen, I'm a black belt in karate. If you don't, leave me alone, I'm going to kick your ass. And my dad, said, "No, don't do anything." My mom, stepmom started crying. And so again, I go there to please. So I'm like, okay. So I calm down and I walk into the doors. And it's kind of like this chicken fence, like the glass door with a chicken fence, inside the glass that you can't see through and you can't really break through it. So I walk in there, they close the door, and in that moment, somebody jumps on me around my neck and pulls off this necklace that I had with beads that some kids made for me, and I'm like, I'm trying to stay calm, and they bring me into a room, and at that time, I didn't know what was going on, but the doctor came in and said they want to give me a shot, they want to give me some drugs, and I can be provocative and sometimes in a way because I want to create some kind of tension, but I also want to bring people out of their comfort zone. At that time, I was young, I didn't know anything like that at the time. It was just my instinct. So I was kind of joking with the doctor. I was like, you just want me. Like I was playing with him, like, and he's like, he got annoyed. But I finally, he pulled down my pants and gives me a shot, and it was like I got up, and everything in the room felt like it was like the people on the other side of the door, the chicken fence door. It was like my old life, and then this life was my new life, and so everybody's face kind of morphed into people. I started connecting and linking. My brain started searching for some kind of certainty and safety. So I saw these people's faces, and I'm like, they look like that person and that person. I started linking it. And I ended up staying there for a month and a half. And throughout that time, I got to make some great friends there, and nobody called me crazy in there because they were all crazy. And so we had a good time. But they had this vision, the patients there, they say, you are Jesus. Like, I mean, they had all these conversations going on. And they were sleeping outside my door, protecting me. And one day, as he said, let's have some fun, and they're like, okay. And in this facility, it was all kinds of people. Like, I mean, there was like murderers, there was rapists, there was all kinds of people. But they were really like, they were protective of me. So one day I said, so if I'm Jesus, then I can just do whatever I want, right? So I just got naked. I got naked and just walked through the corridor, and everybody's like, oh, you gotta get dressed. I'm like, no, but I'm Jesus. I can do whatever I want. Anyway, I got dressed, but they gave me some kind of medication. They tried to force me to take medication, and I didn't want any medication. But they gave me something that literally my body stiffened up. Like my joints, everything, like I couldn't move my fingers. I couldn't move my body at all. I was like completely like stuck, frozen. And I remember at that time, like I wanted to speak. I wanted to like scream, like help, but I couldn't even get the words out of my mouth. So I was kind of stuck in this position, and I could see like people walking by, but nobody cared. Nobody said anything, and I was just standing there, like, and it was morning, it was night, and I don't know how long I was standing there. And I remember peeing myself, and I couldn't move. And finally, somebody, I think my mom came to visit, and somebody said, you got to do something here. So they gave me something else, and all of a sudden, like I woke up, and I got something, and I remember I was a guitar player, but I couldn't move my fingers. So my first thought was like I was scared, like I'm never going to be able to be a musician. I'm not going to be able to play guitar. And this was all around Easter. And so they made all the connections even more, right? And it took about a month about a month and a half when I came out. And I went in there feeling like I had never felt happier in my whole life. So happy. And I came out of there like life was over. Like life had no meaning anymore. Like all my purpose, my vision, everything was gone. And at that time, I was literally laying in my couch eating ice cream, watching, reruns of Laura Ingalls, Little House on the Prairie, eating ice cream, gaining, 25 pounds. And it was just planning the day. Like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to kill myself? I remember going to the doctor saying that I needed sleeping pills because I couldn't sleep, which was not the truth. I was just gathering them, trying to plan the day. And the day came, and I remember calling my dad, and I just said, I'm going to end this. And he's like, do it. It was not the things I was expecting from my dad. And I didn't know back then what I really needed. I reached really connection. I just wanted to be loved. But it was a pivotal point because I was too scared. So my mind went, what if I succeed and I can't do anything? Like, I'm just, seeing everything from above, and I'm not be able to survive or be in this life, right? Or what if I fail and I end up a vegetable and I can't do anything and I still have to be here? So it was all these combining thoughts. It was kind of scary, but I made that decision to live. But I realized I had to change something. I had to do something different. I couldn't stay the way I was. So I had a conversation with a friend that was living in Hollywood, and he calls me, and that very friend moved to Hollywood the very same day I went into the hospital. So a year had passed, and he said, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Nothing. Life is kind of dead." So he said, "Why don't you come over here?" And at that time, my desire for playing music had disappeared. I didn't want to play, but I knew that I could play. So I sent in an audition tape so I can go to music school. And so I came to Hollywood, and I remember the day when I landed. I put my foot on U.S. soil, and I felt like I was home for the very first time. And it was a very special feeling because now I could be myself. I didn't have to live in the old identity that people had for me. And when I came to meet people, it was like people understood me. I could speak about things. They related to what I was saying. They're like, "Yeah, I see things too," you know. And I have a vision. And as I was speaking to people, it was like a different mentality. It was more openness. It was more of a spiritual connection people had, and it was a different energy. And as I was speaking, in 9 months, I became a world champion in karate, which is like, I would never have thought that. I hadn't trained martial arts in many, many years. And I picked it up because I started over again. I was like, I'm going to lose my 25 pounds that I gained, come get back to shape. So I started working out again. In 9 months, I became a world champion, and I opened my own school, my own dojo. And I had 3 of them, but I started teaching a lot of families, a lot of kids, both, parents came, everybody came, and we were training together. And I realized at that time that the physical part was awesome. I love the physical part. I mean, I was training like 6-7 hours a day. So it was, my body was burning out. But what really connected me was the mental, the emotional, the spiritual aspect of it. So I was always teaching life lessons. And the people that came there, they always say, we're coming here for that. Like, we love the martial arts, but they didn't come to learn how to kick and punch. They came there to align with who they were, and to expand their values, and to live true to their values, and connecting families. And that was a really interesting experience, to see people from all walks of life connecting like that. And at that time, I also met Tony Robbins. I remember driving in my car, listening to the cassette tapes at that time, right? and thinking, like, this guy sounds like me. Like, I recognize the thoughts. The thoughts were like, I think like that. And so I decided. So I wrote a letter to him. And within a few weeks, I told him about the school that I had. And within a few weeks, I received a huge package of cassettes and programs and books and everything, and a ticket to UPW. And we went there, and it was like my mind was like, this was one of the best experiences of my life. This was the best thing ever. But I thought one thing, and this is what I want to do. So I came back to my martial arts school, and I started incorporating even more of everything that I was teaching. And finally, I closed down my schools, and I just started traveling and teaching and doing seminars and coaching people one-on-one. And one thing that really stood out for me was that I had this kid that was very, very overweight. And this kid comes into the school before I closed, and I started training him. And I said, I can help you turn this around. He was on asthma medication. He was like, he couldn't eat normally, and he wore like very baggy clothes all the time because he felt very ashamed at school. So I say, give me 30 days. I'm going to work with you every single day. So at 7 o'clock every morning he would come. He was like 11 years old, and he lost all this weight. And I said, on the final day we went out shopping, so he got to wear jeans for the very first time, and a normal t-shirt, and he went to school, and the teacher and the kids, they were so like amazed, and they were so proud of him. And I thought, like, this is what matters, these kind of transformations. And at that time I realized, because when I spoke to his mom was a doctor, and she was actually she was dealing with allergies and stuff. And I noticed there a distinction that I didn't realize, but then I started incorporating it in my life, is that when someone feels like they don't have any meaning, or they lose meaning, they feel threatened. And so she felt threatened that I was helping her son, but she couldn't. So she really pulled him out of the school. And I saw him like a year later, and he was back to the same weight again. And that shows me the importance of having the right environment with the right people around you that support you and can challenge you at the same time, because you want people to challenge you to grow, right? But you still want to have the support that aligns with who you are. And that was a big stepping stone. So when I started doing all the work that I'm doing, teaching, and I saw that entrepreneurs live this lonely life. And a lot of the people that I work with, a lot of athletes, they are like entrepreneurs in a way, right? So some of the best people, I've worked with some of the world's fastest men in the world, that like nobody runs faster. I mean, maybe today, but back then. To see that the transformation that happened when they start to connect and identify with, no matter how much they performed, no matter how they achieved, they still felt like something was missing, like something was not complete. And the recognition of that was that they all had done the same thing as I did. Pushing, always trying to do more, do better, and still not feeling good enough. Still chasing that thing of feeling worthy of being here. And so when you start seeing that no matter how hard you push, no matter how much you achieve, no matter how successful you are, and you still feel like it's not enough, not good enough, right? You're not funny enough, you're not sexy enough, you're not good looking enough, you're not smart enough, whatever enough, and something is missing. It's like my worth was down here, and I was chasing to feel worthy of being here. And when I started to connect and understand that all those parts of me, and when I could integrate all of me, what I used to call your dark side, like all those things that you feel ashamed about, you feel guilt about, all those things that people have told you is bad, right? We work so hard to not be bad, only be good, right? Be nice, don't be mean. And all those things is like other people's values, right? Injected into your values. So you try to change and shift yourself all the time so people will accept you and approve of you. And I realized that that's what I've been doing my whole life. And that's when I saw that everything that happened to me in my life and with my mom and her way of being with me was a catalyst for me to be able to do this for other people. Like it wouldn't have happened.
here's what I love about what it is I get to do, because it is my passion too. When people look you up or they see you in this business suit. Looks like an expensive one, or most of them look really expensive. You're in front of thousands of people. You got your little microphone on. These are the stories that I think people really need to see. This is the real Satori, right? And I can tell you, everybody that I've run into, we all have a story. There's going to be your heart or your darkness somewhere, and just the story that you talk about, from this whole not worthy, thinking about taking your own life, just the steps. And you and I talked about this, and I think it kind of resonates, obviously, with us, and I think with a lot of people. But it always comes down to, if you can embrace all of your failures, it's actually all of the failures that make you successful. And I know some people will look at this program that we're doing, and we're doing it from your home. We're in a studio here. It's very different than when, pictures that they're going to see of you on the internet on stage in front of thousands of people. But it's this guy that I'm interviewing today that has made all the changes. Do you resonate with that?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think that it's, to be honest with you, I'm so sick and tired of seeing people putting up the facades. You look at, this little thing, right? You look at the Instagrams and everybody posting there with their cool cars and, the nice suits and, all these people. And it's like this facade of wanting to look successful. And all they're looking for is to be loved. All they're looking for is for someone to appreciate them. And they bought into the idea, the fantasy, right? I mean, I see so many girls today. I mean, I have, I have the privilege to work, with a great team. And one of the girls, she's very young, and she's telling me about, all her friends. Like, they have to morph themselves, right? They change themselves. They put all these filters on their pictures. Like, can't even be themselves on a freaking picture, right? Looking at at themselves without changing themselves, because they believe that if I'm not flawless, then people are not going to appreciate me, not going to like me. I won't get as many likes. And how strong it is in our society to be judged by not only how we look, but what we wear, what we have, what we own. You see all these celebrities, and I have had the chance to work with a lot of them, but when some of them, they try to always pose with these homes, and people living these illusionary lives, these fantasy lives. If I don't have that, then I'm not successful. And which is actually one of the reasons why I'm here where I am today, where I'm located right now, my environment, because I wanted to shift and see something different.
And I love it, because that's my niche, man. It's what I love to do. I love to capture people in the realness, and because I agree with you 100%. And listen, your greatest gift is the failures, if you can overcome them. And there's so many people that they just stop, and who knows, it might be that next inch that turns you into something absolutely magnificent. Got another little project. He happens to be sitting in studio today. I did another guy on a podcast, and he did this thing called Just Start. That was impressive to me, because most people won't just start, or they'll just stop when just enough failure hits them. And that's why I love the real Satori, right? I want to bring this to life so that people can see all that you went through to end up finding your greatness and helping these just, professional athletes, uber wealthy people come to you for mentorship. It's almost hard to fathom when you look at it, knowing the whole story of what happened. And I just think that's the greatness. I don't think without your grandma helping make that decision, obviously you wouldn't even be here. Without perhaps your dad maybe even saying the things, do it. While that may sound incredibly painful, maybe that's exactly what had to happen in that moment. I just think that's our pathway. And your pathway, you don't get to necessarily design, but you get to decide how to deal with it. And that's why I love talking to you guys that are just uber successful, because I don't want the uber successful story. I want all the failures that got you there. And so I appreciate you for sharing that. Tell us a little bit about where you're going with this program. I know you do Obviously, you have your podcast. I know you're doing a bunch of executive stuff. Where do you want to take it? Like, who is the best person to come listen to your material?
Great question. So 2 years almost now, a year and a half ago, um, I was invited to speak for a bunch of entrepreneurs in Cyprus, where I am right now. And we actually have packed our stuff in the US, and we want to see, because how can we be smart and not be consumers, but be more creators, producers of life, and design our life the way we want it. And what I realized is that I've been living this life where, working really hard, and I love my work, right? I love it. But I was consuming and spending working hard, and all the money was going to this lifestyle. So how can I change and have the same quality of lifestyle, but do something different? So I didn't even think about it, but I got the call. I went to Cyprus and did the workshop, seminar, and I stayed there for a week, and I fell in love. And I mean, it was so beautiful. I mean, this beautiful, actually the cleanest sea, the cleanest ocean in the Mediterranean, right? And the mountains wrapping around it, and beautiful organic food, amazing food, for a fraction. I mean, I bought this beautiful seafront property, literally like right on the ocean. I mean, amazing coastline, for like 140,000 pounds. Like, that's, I don't know exactly right now, but let's say $180,000. Okay, penthouse with a rooftop terrace. Like, I mean, amazing. And I'm like, this is crazy. And it was just first thinking of it as an investment, but then I started seeing the idea, and the idea was to create an entrepreneurial hub. A hub of forward thinkers, of people that want to, health conscious people that want to create something different and meaningful, and to be able to create that community, an actual hub where people can come here and we do seminars, do workshops, and be able to experience the beauty of in nature, and come away from your natural, your normal life, but be able to also have a place that you can come anytime you want. So anytime people come in, you're an entrepreneur, you have the freedom to travel, to choose. You can spend 2-3 months, maybe 6 months out of the year, and be able to collaborate and connect and inspire and build businesses together, and exchange ideas, and have that environment that is, you're focused on 3 core areas that we focus on. Number one, and not necessarily in this order, but definitely your health. We got to make sure that you stay healthy and strong, right? And then your relationships, your key relationships, to make sure you're building a network of people. And number 3, to make sure that you're making money, right? So you can sustain your life. And we're building it right now, and it's so amazing. So I met a team of people here that already have this kind of forward thinking mentality. So when I shared my vision, they were like so open. They just welcomed me in and say, hey, let's do it. So this would probably be, the place where I will be building this hub, for the next 10 years, 20 years. I don't know exactly, but I'll be building this, and who knows, maybe we'll expand it to other areas as well. But the idea is to be able to pick and choose your neighbors, because I don't know about you, but when I was living in the US, I don't know, or even in Sweden, I didn't know my neighbors. You see them, and maybe some of them you hide because you don't want to see them. But how many people do you actually know and talk to and want to hang out with? Like, who you want to spend time with and talk to and collaborate with? So that was how the idea was born. How do you pick your neighbor? So my first thing when I came back from here, I was like, I called my best friends, people that I've been in masterminds with, and I'm like, hey, I want you to be my neighbor. Come and invest with me here. And all of a sudden, like, I had 4 or 5 people around me, and the community is growing. I call it growth hub.
It is true. I know a lot of your stuff that I've watched. It talks about who you surround yourself with, and that definitely seems to be a big part of your success and a big part of the mission that you put out there. And I couldn't agree with that statement any more than anything else in life, because it is truly. You said this to me like yesterday or the day before yesterday. You said, you're always the sum of the 5 people that you hang around with. And, that's been passed down time and time and time again, but it doesn't ever get less true. And but to see where you came from, again, I wanted to point this out doing this podcast with you to see the whole kind of the story to your rise to this just crazy level of success. It's all of those bad things that when I get the opportunity to interview you guys, it's those things that you bring up out of your story. You don't bring up yeah, I'm hanging out with Tony and yeah, this is how we get successful. It's always the story of the pain and the suffering and the all of a sudden this clicking in your mind that says, wait a minute, I'm still alive. Every day I get a chance to do something better. And it's the same story with all you guys. And I'm not going to stop running. I'm going to keep running them until everybody figures it out that, man, if you get smoked and you hit the ground, you get back up and there's still a potential for greatness. So I want to let everybody know, give us how people can reach you, how people can find out about your information.
Yes. So I'm on most social media things. So at Satori Mateu, Satori Mateu. Everybody doesn't know how to pronounce my last name. It can be kind of difficult sometimes, but Satori Mateu. Also SatoriMateo.com. And we're creating some really cool stuff right now. We're building this community. So we're going to basically bring it into, because of everything that's happening around the world, we bring it into with a digital platform, but also a physical platform. So people can actually come here. But we're combining both, so people can come and go through the retreats with us and everything, and it's kind of born out of that whole idea that a lot of entrepreneurs, they live a lonely life. They go to maybe a mastermind, they hang out for 2-3 days, and they go back home and they're isolated again. And I think that this time right now we've been isolated more than ever, and people live in this isolation, not connecting, not talking to people. So this time that we have right now it's amazing because people get to have some piece of connection, and not be by themselves. But I think that, as entrepreneurs, we all want to have someone to share those thoughts and ideas, the struggles and the success.
You bet. Would you say kind of everything wrapped up in a nutshell from where you're at is there's always greatness somewhere?
Absolutely. Yes. There's always greatness somewhere. And like we talked about the other day, even inside of the challenge, inside of the pain, there's greatness. There's benefit. There are benefits inside of that pain if you look for it. Right?
Yes. And that's what I want to tell people and our listeners is that's what your specialty is finding that greatness in the pain. Satori, I tell you what, I chased you down. I was going to. A lot of people helped me to get to you. I think that we brought out the realness of you today, and that's exactly what I wanted to do because I know people are going to look you up and they're going to see this magnificent person. But it kind of goes back to what we talked about. Sometimes what you see is not always real, and I want to bring the realness to show how that greatness became. And I appreciate you more than you'll ever know coming on this show. I know we're going to end up doing more things together at some point.
Yes.
But I just want to tell everybody.
Here,
What's
right?
that?
You have an open invite to come here.
Well, I want that penthouse that I saw yesterday. I want the one on top there. That looks like the best views of the whole place. But we will meet in person just because I resonate with you, man. I love any type of Rocky story where the guy was down at the very end. And I mean, you were down there twice. And then to come out and do what you've done and associate with the people that you associate with, coach the people that you coach, which a lot of times on here, I mean, every now and then just for ratings, we'll do some name dropping. But I want people to look you up because the names that you mentor are like a lot of people's heroes around the world, and it'll show your power. But I hope I showed your vulnerability today, and I also appreciate you showing us your vulnerability today. So I thank you from the bottom of the heart for coming on the show. Can't wait to do more. And we'll be seeing you soon.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, buddy.
See you soon.